A lone streetlight flickers in the dead of night, casting a dim glow on a quiet suburban neighborhood. The wind howls, and the trees creak as if whispering secrets of their own. But this isn't just another night. This is a night that would forever change the town of Belvoir Heights, a town that prides itself on being the picture of suburban tranquility. On this night, a family of four will vanish without a trace, and nothing will ever be the same again. The Williams family, known to their neighbors for their bright smiles and picture-perfect life, has disappeared. No signs of struggle, no ransom notes, no phone calls, just an eerie silence. As the clock ticks closer to midnight, a chilling sense of unease settles over the neighborhood. No one can understand what has happened. Was it a kidnapping, a murder, or something far darker? And who would want to harm a family that seemed to have everything? The case of the Williams family would remain unsolved for days, then weeks, then months, dragging the town into a vortex of fear, suspicion, and secrets long buried. But, as with all mysteries, the truth has a way of clawing its way to the surface. And when it does, nothing will ever be the same again. But before we dive deeper into this chilling investigation, I just want to remind you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss out on any of our future uploads. We post true crime, suspenseful stories every day, and each case is more shocking than the last. If you're new to the channel, be sure to catch up with our previous videos to immerse yourself fully in these gripping tales. Now, let's jump right back into the story. In Belvoir Heights, the Williams family was the epitome of perfection. Charles Williams, 42, was a successful architect who had made a name for himself designing upscale homes. His wife, Sarah, 39, was a beloved elementary school teacher, known for her nurturing spirit and warm smile. They had two children, Emma, a bright 10-year-old who had recently won a regional science fair, and Noah, a 7-year-old with an infectious laugh who loved sports. The Williams family had moved to Belvoir Heights 5 years ago, and since then, they had become an integral part of the community. They attended church every Sunday, volunteered at local charities, and were the kind of neighbors everyone wished they had. No one could have ever imagined that something sinister lurked beneath the surface. But on one fateful evening, everything changed. It was a Tuesday in early October, just as the leaves were beginning to change color. The Williams family had just returned from a family trip to the coast, and everything seemed perfectly normal. They had dinner together, laughed at Emma's school stories, and tucked the kids into bed before retiring to their own room. Around midnight, a neighbor noticed something strange. The lights in the Williams home were flickering intermittently. This wasn't unusual. Occasional power surges were common in Belvoir Heights. But what was strange was that, after the lights flickered, they went completely dark. This was no simple blackout. It was a kind of blackout that made you question everything. And from that moment on, the Williams family was gone. The next morning, the family's van was still parked in the driveway. The doors were locked, but the engine was warm, indicating it had been driven recently. Inside, there were no signs of struggle, no overturned seats, no evidence of fight. But as the hours passed and no one heard from the family, concern began to grow. By the time the police were called, something had become clear. The Williams family had vanished, and no one knew why. Detective Amanda Hayes, a seasoned investigator with the Belvoir Heights Police Department, was called in to lead the case. Hayes was known for her keen instincts and meticulous attention to detail. She had solved some of the town's most puzzling cases, but nothing prepared her for this. Her first task was to speak with the neighbors. The man who had noticed the flickering lights, Greg Davis, was the first to be interviewed. He lived next door to the Williams family and had known them for years. "I saw the lights flicker," Greg explained nervously, "but I didn't think much of it. You know how it is, power surges, especially after a storm. I went to bed around 11, and that's when it happened. The lights went out, and that was it. I didn't hear anything unusual, no sounds, no screaming, nothing." Hayes probed deeper, asking about any possible conflicts or unusual behavior from the Williams family. But Greg shook his head. They were a quiet family, always friendly. Charles and Sarah were like, "I don't know, perfect." They didn't argue, didn't have any issues. I honestly can't think of anyone who would want to hurt them. Detective Hayes frowned, her mind racing. This didn't make sense. If there were no signs of a struggle, and no one had seen anything, Where were the Williams? The next step in the investigation was to visit the Williams home. The officers had already combed through the house, but Hayes wanted to do a more thorough inspection. As she entered, the first thing that caught her eye was a family photo album left open on the kitchen counter. The last photo was taken just a few days ago, during their trip to the coast. The smiles were genuine, the laughter was real. It felt like a snapshot of a happy family, a family that had simply disappeared. But as Hayes moved through the house, she noticed something unsettling. The front door had been locked from the inside, yet the back door, which led to the backyard, was wide open. A small detail, but a crucial one. Hayes walked through the house with the other officers, examining each room. There were no signs of forced entry, and nothing appeared to be missing. The family's personal belongings, phones, and wallets were all still inside. But there was something more that caught Hayes' attention: the children's toys. Emma's science fair medal was lying on the coffee table, and Noah's favorite baseball glove was tossed carelessly on the couch. It was as if they had just been dropped in haste. Something was off. The house felt unnaturally clean, like no one had lived there for days. Days passed, and the investigation took several turns. The police questioned friends, family, and co-workers. At first, there were no major leads, but as Hayes dug deeper into the Williams background, something strange began to emerge. Charles Williams had recently made significant changes to his will. According to a lawyer who had worked with the family, Charles had updated the document just a week before the family's disappearance. The will was odd in its terms. Charles had left everything to his wife, Sarah, but only on the condition that she remained in Belvoir Heights. If she left the town, the inheritance would go to a distant relative. There were also whispers about a business deal gone sour. Charles had recently been involved in a controversial project with a group of wealthy investors. The project had hit a significant roadblock, and Charles had been vocal about the strain it was putting on his finances. But the more Detective Hayes investigated, the more she found herself drawn to one particular detail. Sarah Williams had been involved in a secret online forum dedicated to unsolved mysteries. The forum had thousands of members, all of whom shared their theories on cold cases, conspiracies, and strange disappearances. And as Hayes dug deeper, she uncovered a disturbing pattern. Sarah had posted about strange occurrences in her own life, feeling like she was being watched, strange phone calls late at night, and even an unexplained car accident that had nearly killed her a few months prior. But there was no mention of these concerns to anyone in her personal life. It was as if Sarah was living in two different worlds. Just when it seemed like the investigation would go cold, a breakthrough came in the form of a single, cryptic message. The family's youngest child, Noah, had been found in the woods outside Belvoir Heights, half-conscious and covered in date. When he woke up in the hospital, his only words were, "The man in the black suit took them." Noah's statement sent shockwaves through the investigation. Was it a simple child imagination, or did it point to something darker? Detective Hayes ordered a thorough search of the woods, and after days of combing through dense thickets and tangled brush, they found a hidden underground bunker. Inside, they discovered shocking evidence, a series of surveillance photos of the Williams family, taken from various angles over the course of months. It was clear that someone had been watching them closely, but there was no sign of Charles, Sarah, or Emma. As the investigation continued, several conflicting theories emerged. Some believed that the Williams family had staged their own disappearance, fleeing from debts or an unknown danger. Others speculated that they had been abducted by someone they knew, someone with deep knowledge of their routines. And then there were those who believed the family had fallen victim to a twisted conspiracy, a criminal syndicate with ties to the very people they trusted. But no matter how hard Detective Hayes and her team worked, they couldn't find the final piece of the puzzle. In the end, the case of the Williams family's disappearance was never fully solved. Despite extensive searches, countless interviews, and even more theories, the truth remained elusive. The only thing the investigators could be sure was that the Williams family had vanished, and someone or something was responsible. And as Detective Hayes sat in her office, looking over the case files one last time, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was being overlooked. There was a piece of the puzzle she had missed, a crucial detail that could unravel everything. Thank you very much for listening. See you in the other one.